There's a moment when machine and motion blur together, when the sound of precision-built metal and the rush of open air turn from noise into something symphonic. It's not about nostalgia. It's about mastery. About what happens when human obsession with performance becomes art. You can ride. Imagine a time before wind tunnels and digital modeling, when speed was calculated by nerve and intuition. Picture an era when luxury meant craftsmanship you could feel through the handlebars, and performance wasn't a number on a spec sheet. It was a reputation earned, mile by mile. In that world, one motorcycle stood apart, merging elegance with danger, refinement with rebellion. It didn't just define what a motorcycle could be, it redefined what excellence meant on two wheels. This is the story of how one machine from the 1930s became the benchmark for all that followed. The machine others were measured against, and the legend that still whispers through every collector's dream. Like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which classic you want to see next. The Brough Superior SS100 was born from a singular vision to create the finest motorcycle in the world at a time when most bikes were built for survival, not splendor. In the early 1930s, when roads were rough and motorcycling was still the pursuit of tinkerers and thrill-seekers, George Brough refused to accept compromise. He believed that performance and luxury could coexist on two wheels, that a motorcycle could be both an engineering masterpiece and a personal statement of taste. Every Brough Superior SS100 began life in a modest Nottingham workshop where craftsmanship trumped mass production. While other manufacturers chased volume, Brough chased perfection. Each frame was hand-finished, every engine tested, tuned, and adjusted until it met his strict standard of delivering a guaranteed 100 miles per hour. An astonishing claim in an age when most motorcycles struggled to reach half that speed. This wasn't marketing bravado. Brough personally road-tested every SS100, signing off only when it earned his approval. Buyers weren't simply purchasing a machine, they were commissioning an individual work of mechanical art. To understand why the Brough Superior SS100 mattered, you have to see the world it came from. The 1930s were turbulent years for Britain. The lingering effects of the Great Depression meant economic caution, yet the upper classes were still captivated by machines that embodied progress and sophistication. Automobiles like the Rolls-Royce and Bentley had become symbols of status. Brough sought to create their equal on two wheels. His clientele wasn't the average commuter, it was the adventurous elite, the kind who valued distinction over practicality. They wanted something that announced success without a word, and the SS100 did exactly that. It was often called the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles, and the name stuck, not just because of its finish, but because Rolls-Royce themselves approved of the comparison. The SS100's engineering reflected its ambition. It used top-shelf components, JAP and later matchless engines, castle front forks derived from aircraft design, and hand-polished nickel and chrome throughout. Each bike bore subtle differences, tailored to its buyer's preferences, from fuel tank shape to exhaust configuration. The result was mechanical individuality wrapped in uniform excellence. Brough didn't just assemble motorcycles. He curated them, combining the best parts available into a cohesive, harmonious whole. But owning a Brough Superior SS100 wasn't about utility. It was about the experience of mastery, feeling that every movement, every vibration was deliberate. Riding one wasn't a passive act. It demanded respect, control, and confidence. It wasn't forgiving, but it rewarded skill with speed and poise that few machines could match. Riders described the sensation as unlike anything else on the road, power delivered with the grace of a grand tourer, not the brutality of a racer. For many, it felt alive. One of the most famous enthusiasts was T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who owned several Brough Superiors and described them with affection and reverence. His passion for the SS100 added mystique to its legend, linking the machine to heroism and adventure. But behind the glamour lay a simple truth. The SS100 was a product of exacting standards and relentless attention to detail. Every weld, every polish, every bolt carried the weight of Brough's reputation. Failure was not tolerated. That pursuit of perfection made production slow and expensive. While other companies were producing thousands of bikes a year, Brough Superior built fewer than 3,000 in total across its entire run. Each one represented hours of manual labor, meticulous testing, and near-obsessive quality control. The SS100 was priced for exclusivity. It cost several times more than the average motorcycle, sometimes rivaling the cost of a small house. Yet buyers were undeterred. They weren't purchasing transportation. They were buying entry into a club of mechanical connoisseurs. To own a Brough was to make a statement that you valued excellence over expedience and that you could afford to demand the very best. The Brough Superior SS100 also marked a shift in how motorcycles were perceived. It elevated them from tools of mobility to symbols of prestige. In an era when motorcycles were still associated with grease and grit, the SS100 exuded refinement. It was the kind of machine that looked as good parked in front of a country estate as it did racing across the countryside. This duality, elegance and danger intertwined, became the core of its allure. Every ride was an event, every journey a performance. Yet Brough's insistence on quality and performance wasn't just vanity. It was his way of future-proofing his creation. The SS100's handling was years ahead of its time. Its stability at speed, its confidence in corners, and its smooth power delivery set benchmarks that influenced motorcycle design for decades. It proved that a motorcycle could be both thrilling and civilized, powerful yet poised. As the 1930s progressed, Brough Superior's reputation grew. The SS100 became synonymous with speed records and exclusive ownership. It wasn't uncommon to see headlines of Brough riders setting new time trials or achieving feats that pushed the limits of what was possible on two wheels. The name carried weight, not through advertising, but through achievement. Each success reaffirmed Brough's claim to superiority. Still, beneath the surface of triumph, challenges loomed. The meticulous hand-building that defined the SS100 also limited its scalability. The market was shifting toward mass production, and affordability began to outweigh craftsmanship for most consumers. Brough refused to compromise, believing that once quality was diluted, the brand's identity would vanish. It was a noble stance, but one that carried risk. The world was changing fast. As the decade drew to a close, the shadow of war began to fall over Europe. Resources were tightening and priorities shifted from luxury to necessity. The SS100, though beloved, was a relic of an era that prized elegance over efficiency, yet its story was far from over. The philosophy behind it, performance through precision, luxury through engineering, would echo through generations of motorcycle design to come. To understand how the SS100 survived its own obsolescence, we need to look at how it became more than just a product. It became an idea, a standard of what happens when passion, craftsmanship, and ambition collide. And in the next part of the story, we'll see how that idea spread beyond its workshop, influencing racing, inspiring rivals, and defining what it meant to build the world's finest motorcycle. The Brough Superior SS100 may have been conceived in a small Nottingham workshop, but by the mid-1930s it had captured imaginations far beyond Britain's borders. It wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a status symbol, a conversation starter, and in many ways a cultural artifact. The SS100 represented the pinnacle of what a private engineer could achieve when freed from corporate constraints. Each example bore the fingerprints of its creator's ideals, blending luxury craftsmanship with engineering audacity. But that very individuality created a paradox. The SS100's perfection made it nearly impossible to mass produce, and its exclusivity both cemented its mystique and sealed its fate. On paper, the SS100's performance was extraordinary for its time. Its twin-cylinder engine, initially sourced from JAP, later from Matchless, was tuned meticulously to deliver that famed 100 mph guarantee. In an era when most motorcycles topped out around 60, that figure bordered on science fiction. Owners weren't just buyers. They were patrons of performance. The ride itself was transformative, stable at high speed, responsive in handling, and with a smoothness that defied expectations for a machine without modern suspension or balancing technology. It was fast, but more than that, it was composed. That combination of civility and speed became the foundation for its legend. Yet prestige breeds imitation. Other manufacturers began chasing Brough's formula, lightweight frames, tuned engines, aerodynamic touches, but few matched its refinement. Rivals tried to outgun it with raw horsepower or racing pedigree, but Brough's advantage lay not in numbers, but in nuance. He understood that luxury on two wheels was as much about how a machine made you feel as how fast it could go. A Brough Superior SS100 didn't just win races, it won hearts, commanding admiration even from those who could never afford one. The motorcycle press of the era treated it almost reverently. Articles gushed about its craftsmanship, its uncanny balance between aggression and grace. It became the reference point, the benchmark that all others were compared against. In British motoring culture, owning a Brough meant you had arrived, not just socially but mechanically. Yet that acclaim also carried a price. Each SS100 was expensive to build and maintain. Parts were specialized. Tolerances were tight. Mechanics who understood their intricacies were rare. Owners often became caretakers, investing time and care to keep their machines running at their best. For many, that intimacy was part of the appeal. They didn't merely ride their SS100s, they bonded with them. This blend of engineering precision and emotional attachment became a defining trait of the Brough experience. The SS100's influence also extended into motorsport. While George Brough himself was an accomplished racer, his motorcycles were not purebred competition machines. They were road-going thoroughbreds. Yet, in the right hands, the SS100 dominated hill climbs, speed trials, and endurance runs. Riders broke records that stood for years, often on bikes that had been delivered straight from the showroom floor. This dual-purpose capability, luxury for the road, performance for the track, foreshadowed a philosophy that would later shape the sport touring class. Perhaps the most poignant connection between the SS100 and public imagination came through its association with T.E. Lawrence. His passion for Brough. Superiors added a romantic aura that no advertisement could match. Lawrence's devotion and his tragic death on one of his machines elevated the SS100 from mechanical excellence to cultural mythology. It symbolized freedom, adventure, and the thin line between exhilaration and danger. That story echoed through decades, feeding the SS100's mystique long after production ceased. In the United States, the SS100 remained a rarity, but it fascinated American enthusiasts who were used to the muscular simplicity of domestic V-twins. The Brough's polished craftsmanship, advanced engineering, and sheer exclusivity made it the kind of machine collectors dreamed of importing. It represented an alternate vision of motorcycling, one not built around brute force or rebellion, but elegance and precision. For the few Americans who managed to acquire one, the SS100 wasn't transportation, it was mechanical royalty. Still, global admiration couldn't shield Brough Superior from the realities of economics. The late 1930s brought financial pressures and geopolitical instability that no boutique manufacturer could withstand. The demand for high-end motorcycles shrank as practical and affordable machines took precedence. Then came the war, and with it, the end of luxury production. By 1940, the factory that had produced the SS100 was redirected toward military contracts, and soon after, the mark faded into dormancy. But the end of production didn't mean the end of influence. The Brough Superior SS100 became a touchstone for engineers and designers long after its assembly lines went silent. Its blend of hand-built quality, performance assurance, and owner personalization anticipated principles that would later define premium motorcycle brands. Decades later, the echoes of the SS100 could be felt in everything from high-end Italian sport bikes to modern British revivals. Even the notion of factory-tested speed guarantees, a marketing tactic common today, can trace its lineage back to Brough's insistence that every SS100 live up to its name. As the years passed, collectors began to rediscover the surviving machines. Each restoration uncovered the meticulous care with which they had been built. Owners documented unique details, custom oil tanks, subtle frame variations, hand-engraved plates, revealing that no two SS100s were truly alike. They were as individual as their riders, frozen moments of mechanical art. Auctions transformed these once functional motorcycles into blue-chip collectibles. Prices soared into the six-figure range, and their rarity only amplified the allure. Each sale wasn't merely a transaction. It was a passing of legacy. The SS100 became less about nostalgia and more about reverence, for an era when precision mattered more than profit. For the engineering community, the Brough Superior SS100 remains a case study in balancing ambition with execution. Its philosophy, design with obsession, test without compromise, sell without apology, resonates with builders to this day. It represents the idea that craftsmanship can achieve what technology alone cannot: character. The kind of mechanical soul that makes a machine feel alive. But legacy isn't just about influence, it's about endurance. The fact that SS100s still run today nearly a century later speaks volumes about their construction and the dedication of those who preserve them. These machines aren't museum pieces. They're living artifacts, still capable of the speeds they promised generations ago. They remind us that perfection, once achieved, doesn't age, it endures. Yet even as the legend grew, a question lingered. Could anything ever truly follow the Brough Superior SS100? For decades, the answer was no, until modern revival efforts began breathing new life into the brand. But those attempts, however sincere, always face the same challenge. How do you replicate something that was never built by formula, but by feel? In the next segment, we'll explore how the Brough Superior SS100 spirit evolved over time, how its philosophy shaped modern motorcycle culture, and why its reputation remains untouchable even in a world of advanced materials, electronics, and wind tunnel perfection. The Brough Superior SS100 has outlived its own century, not as a museum relic, but as an enduring idea, a vision of what happens when craftsmanship becomes a calling. Even today, the SS100 stands as a benchmark for how mechanical art can transcend time. When you see one up close, you feel the same quiet confidence George Brough built into every curve and line. The hand-polished tank reflects light differently from modern chrome. The leather, aged and supple, seems to remember every mile. Each component carries intent. The Brough Superior SS100 was never about quantity. It was about consequence. That philosophy continues to shape how enthusiasts and builders think about motorcycles. In the decades after World War II, mass production reshaped the industry. Speed and efficiency replaced hand finishing. Cost optimization eclipsed individual artistry. But even in that new reality, the SS100 remained a North Star. Designers who sought to restore emotional connection in machines, whether through cafe racers, British twins, or modern sport classics, borrowed something from Brough's blueprint. The idea that performance should be beautiful, and that beauty should have purpose. You can see the echoes of that thinking in modern revivals. In recent years, the Brough Superior name returned, attached once again to machines built by hand, with materials like titanium, carbon fiber, and aerospace-grade alloys. These new interpretations, while technologically advanced, chase the same spirit as the original SS100. Uncompromising craftsmanship, unmistakable design, and performance that feels personal. Yet for purists, no revival can fully capture the essence of the 1930s original. Because the magic of the SS100 wasn't just in its specifications, it was in its imperfections, its individuality. It was a motorcycle built by touch, by judgment, by the intuition of craftsmen who knew when something was right because it felt right. That human fingerprint is difficult to replicate in a world run by algorithms and precision machining. What makes the SS100 truly special, even now, is that it bridges two worlds, the artisanal and the technical. It was the last of the great motorcycles to be built entirely by hand, yet it delivered a level of performance that stood toe-to-toe with the emerging age of science-driven engineering. It was both a swan song and a prophecy. Its design language, the long, low stance, the perfectly balanced tank, the polished accents, still informs how we imagine elegance in motorcycles. The SS100 taught the world that speed and sophistication need not be opposites. They can complement one another when guided by passion. Collectors today speak of the SS100 in almost spiritual terms. Restoring one is not just a project, it's an act of preservation. Parts are scarce, knowledge is arcane, and authenticity is everything. Each nut and bolt matters because each carries history. To ride a genuine Brough Superior SS100 is to feel a century collapse into the present, to sense the hum of precision made by hands long gone but not forgotten. Modern riders accustomed to digital traction control, electronic suspension, and seamless shifting find something almost primal in the SS100's analog soul. There's no safety net, no automation, only the direct dialogue between rider and machine. And that connection, that purity, is why its legend still resonates. It reminds us that the essence of riding isn't technology, it's trust. It's the understanding that mastery comes from balance, from respect, from a shared rhythm between human and mechanical. The SS100 captures that truth better than any motorcycle before or since. The influence of the Brough Superior SS100 stretches beyond motorcycling. It redefined how mechanical luxury could be understood. Before it, luxury meant softness, indulgence, excess. After it, luxury could mean precision, restraint, purpose. That shift echoes in everything from modern sports cars to high-end watches, the idea that the finest things are those built with obsession, not abundance. The SS100 proved that excellence could be functional, not just ornamental. It was a machine that didn't need decoration because its engineering was its art. For those lucky enough to experience it today, the SS100 offers a window into a vanished world. Its controls require finesse. Its throttle demands patience. Yet once mastered, it rewards with a harmony that modern machines rarely deliver. There's a grace in its motion, a rhythm in its power band, a tactile feedback through the frame that feels alive. That vitality, what enthusiasts call soul, is what makes the SS100 timeless. It's why even the most advanced motorcycles still chase that elusive blend of speed, stability, and serenity. In the United States, where the SS100 remains a coveted rarity, the legend has taken on a different form. Here, it's less about nostalgia and more about aspiration. Collectors and historians seek it not just as an investment, but as a symbol of the pursuit of excellence, a reminder that perfection isn't about numbers, but about intent. American motorcycle culture, often defined by rugged individualism and power, finds in the SS100 a different kind of heroism. Quiet mastery, not loud dominance. Each surviving example that crosses the Atlantic becomes a touchstone, a reminder that the quest for mechanical purity transcends borders. Even now at exclusive shows and concours events, when a Brough Superior SS100 appears, conversation stops. People gather drawn by its presence. It doesn't shout for attention. It commands it. That stillness, that dignity, is the mark of true greatness. And yet, for all its grandeur, the SS100 remains approachable in spirit. It wasn't born in a corporate lab or sculpted by committee. It came from a man and a team who believed motorcycles could be more than transportation. They could be expressions of who we are at our best: curious, daring, meticulous, driven. That's why the SS100 story endures. Because it isn't just about what we ride, it's about what we aspire to build, and who we become when we refuse to compromise. In the end, the Brough Superior SS100 is more than the sum of its parts. It's a philosophy made metal, a promise that excellence can be timeless when it's born from passion. And as we look to the future of motorcycling, with its electric drivetrains and digital controls, the SS100 stands as both a challenge and an inspiration. It asks a simple, enduring question: can modern perfection ever feel as human as this? The answer, perhaps, is why its legend still burns so brightly. In our final segment, we'll bring the legacy of the Brough Superior SS100 home, examining what it means for today's collectors, riders, and dreamers, and how its values continue to define what true craftsmanship looks like in the modern era. For today's riders and collectors, the Brough Superior SS100 represents more than vintage appeal. It's a benchmark of authenticity in a world that's grown accustomed to automation. To own one is to step back into an era when mastery required touch, patience, and nerve. The Brough Superior SS100 is not a motorcycle that forgives mistakes. It rewards precision and punishes complacency, and that's exactly why enthusiasts still revere it. In the United States, where only a handful of authentic SS100s exist, ownership is less about convenience and more about stewardship. Each one carries a provenance, a story connecting past and present through oil, metal, and memory. Maintenance isn't simple. Parts must often be fabricated, tolerances adjusted by feel, but those who care for them say it's worth it, because the SS100 offers a tactile connection to history that no modern bike can replicate. For serious collectors, prices have soared into the mid-six-figure range, and auction houses treat each example like fine art. Provenance, originality, and mechanical integrity determine value far more than mileage. A well-documented SS100, especially one with period-correct components and traceable ownership, is among the most coveted motorcycles in existence. Yet even with that prestige, its legacy feels strangely personal. The SS100 is not distant or aloof, it's intimate. It reminds you that excellence comes from persistence, that machinery can have soul. In the current revival of the brand, modern Brough Superior motorcycles echo that same DNA. Meticulously hand-built, priced for connoisseurs, engineered for emotion as much as performance. But the originals hold a deeper gravity because they embody the genesis of that ideal. They were created before focus groups and marketing departments, born from a single belief that craftsmanship mattered more than scale. Reliability, in the context of an SS100, is relative. When properly maintained, these machines are remarkably robust, a testament to their over-engineering. But they demand ritual care. Oil changes, valve checks, lubrication schedules that feel almost ceremonial. Their engines, designed for precision rather than simplicity, reward attentiveness. Modern owners speak of listening to the machine, learning its rhythm, anticipating its needs. That intimacy creates loyalty few modern bikes inspire. For American enthusiasts contemplating ownership, import logistics and restoration costs can be formidable. Genuine examples are rare, and verifying authenticity requires expertise. Replicas and bits of builds abound. Yet even so, the pursuit is part of the allure. Tracking down original parts, consulting archives, uncovering history, it's detective work with grease under your nails. And for many, that effort is the real reward. Because the Brough Superior SS100 isn't simply an object, it's a journey. Its influence continues to shape how writers and builders define the word superior. Every time a modern manufacturer touts handcrafted precision or bespoke tuning, it's echoing Brough's legacy. Every time a collector restores a vintage machine with reverence instead of replacement, that same spirit endures. Even modern design philosophies, minimalist lines, exposed mechanical honesty, integrated elegance, owe something to the path the SS100 carved nearly a century ago. For US viewers considering its relevance today, the SS100's lesson isn't limited to motorcycles. It's a reminder that progress means nothing without purpose, and that technology should serve craft, not erase it. The SS100 teaches that refinement comes from discipline, not excess. It proves that the pursuit of perfection is a human endeavor, one measured not in speed or luxury, but in the willingness to build something better than necessary. The Brough Superior SS100 remains the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles, not because it was declared so, but because it earned that reputation through relentless attention to detail and an uncompromising pursuit of excellence. Nearly 100 years later, its shadow still falls across every machine that dares to claim greatness. It invites us to ask harder questions. What does quality really mean? What are we willing to sacrifice for it? And why, even in an age of instant perfection, do we still crave the mark of a human hand? Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson of the Brough Superior SS100. It reminds us that machines, at their best, are reflections of our own ambition. They carry the same flaws, the same brilliance, the same capacity for transcendence. When built with passion, they become something timeless. That's the legacy of the SS100. Proof that excellence isn't a moment in history, it's a mindset. The kind that refuses to fade even as the world races forward,